Harry, Ron, Hermione. What an iconic trio. They're like Luke, Leia, and Han, or the Three Musketeers. Trios don't come much more famous. So what if we killed one of them? Ron came close to dying quite a few times, not least of which was in the Philosopher's Stone when he sacrifices himself in the giant game of wizard's chess.
Once I make my move, then you're free to check the king.
Oh, wrong clip, sorry. So I wanted to investigate what would happen if Ron died in the first book. So why did I have to kill Ron? Why didn't I just pick Hermione? Well, for one, the author actually said she almost killed Ron out of spite at one point while she was writing the books. And not only that, I feel like Ron is kind of underrated. People feel like he's kind of just comic relief or a goofy sidekick. So I wanted to prove those naysayers wrong and deep dive the impact Ron actually had on the series. Plus, there were just so many situations where Ron could have died. We'll focus on the first main one, Ron dying in the chess match. So we're killing Ron. He sacrifices himself in the giant wizard's chess match and dies a hero. Harry goes on to stop Quirrell, and Ron is known wizarding worldwide for being the one that saved them all from Voldemort's return. Although if we learn anything from the Order of the Phoenix, no one in the wizarding world would believe that Voldemort was going to return anyway. Either way, Ron dies in the chess match, and the end of the Philosopher's Stone doesn't really change much, although there'd probably be less celebrating. So Harry's second year rolls around, and nobody saves him from the Dursleys. Sure, the twins could have, but without Ron telling them about Harry and the Dursleys, would they have? I feel like they'd probably be busy with their family mourning the death of their brother. So Harry spends the entire summer with the Dursleys, and after Dobby's mischief, it's a miserable summer. And then when the barrier to platform 9 3/4 is closed, Harry has no Ron, no Weasleys, no flying car, no way of getting to Hogwarts. And let's face it, the Dursleys wouldn't wait around for him either, so he's just stranded at King's Cross. Now perhaps he accidentally summons the night bus here, or he waits around and the staff at Hogwarts realise he hasn't showed up, or after Ron's death maybe Dumbledore's watching him a bit more closely and he sends someone to collect Harry. Either way, I think eventually Harry finds his way back to Hogwarts feeling very alone and feeling very sorry for himself. So a lot of the year plays out the same, and eventually Hermione gets petrified, which leads to Harry following the spiders by himself, eventually ending up at Aragog's lair. With no Ron and no Ford Anglia to save him, it's actually very likely that Harry dies here. I can't think of any way without the car rescuing him that he escapes dozens, if not hundreds, of very hungry acromantula. If somehow he were able to, maybe the centaurs save him for some reason, although apart from Firenze, I can't see any of them doing that. But imagine they do and he gets out, what other impact would Ron's absence have? Well, obviously there'll be a big change to the whole Gilderoy Lockhart scenario. I can see Harry, in an attempt to make up for Ron's death, trying to help Lockhart save Ginny after she's taken into the chamber at the end of the year. So Harry takes Lockhart to the Chamber of Secrets at wand point, and in the same way that he did with Ron's, I imagine Lockhart steals Harry's wand here. But Harry's wand isn't broken, it's perfectly functioning, which means Lockhart's memory charm wouldn't backfire. So Lockhart's memory charm is successful, Harry loses his mind, Ginny dies in the chamber. And without Harry there to stab the diary at the last minute, Voldemort would return to full strength, having magically sapped the life out of Ginny. So, if Harry wasn't killed by Aragog, it's safe to assume he's completely lost his mind. In the Order of the Phoenix, when we see Lockhart, he can't remember anything about his life. And since that's the very charm that backfired, but in this scenario wouldn't have, it's safe to assume Harry would be in exactly the same situation. So Harry can't remember anything, and meanwhile Ron is dead. With Ron dead, it's unlikely Scabbers would be in the picture of the Weasleys after they won the lottery and went to Egypt. If he's not in that picture, Sirius Black doesn't recognise him as Wormtail, and so Sirius never breaks out of Azkaban. And without Sirius breaking out, nobody uncovers the truth about Wormtail faking his own death. So, thanks to the Chamber of Secrets and Tom Riddle's diary, we have a full-strength Voldemort on the prowl. Meanwhile, Harry has either been killed by giant spiders or is completely brain-dead in St. Mungo's. Now, Wormtail doesn't need to return to Voldemort because Sirius and Remus don't know the truth about him faking his death. They still think he's dead. But I think Voldemort's return would scare him and the other Death Eaters, and many of them would end up returning. But remember, they're returning to diary Tom Riddle, which raises the question, what happened to weird fetus fetus Voldemort. Presumably after the whole Quirrell thing, he's still floating around somewhere. So what if the Death Eaters, maybe Wormtail, maybe somebody else, is able to recover weird fetus Voldemort, kidnap brain-dead Harry from St. Mungo's, and perform the resurrection ceremony in the graveyard? In theory, at that point, we've got 2 full-strength Voldemorts, and presumably after the ceremony, Harry is killed comfortably by the 2 of them, especially considering he can't remember how to do any magic at all. So Ron's dead, Harry's probably not that close to the Weasleys, and so by extension, the Weasleys probably aren't that close with Dumbledore. A lot of the interactions we see between the Weasleys and Dumbledore come via Harry. If we think of one interaction specifically, the end of the Goblet of Fire, the Weasleys are at Hogwarts to support Harry in the Triwizard Tournament. That's when they learn of Voldemort's return, and that's when Dumbledore recruits them to the Order of the Phoenix. And by the Battle of Hogwarts, more than 50% of the Order of the Phoenix is Weasley. But in this scenario, that's very unlikely. Not only are they less likely to be recruited just because they have fewer interactions with Dumbledore, but also Ron died on Dumbledore's watch in his first year at Hogwarts. And the following year, Ginny would have died in the Chamber of Secrets in her first year on Dumbledore's watch as well. And by that point, I don't think the Weasleys are that likely to follow Dumbledore anymore, which means half the Order aren't part of the Order anymore. So, Ron dies in the Philosopher's Stone. The following year, Harry is either killed by Aragog or rendered brain dead by Gilderoy Lockhart. Ginny Weasley then dies in the Chamber of Secrets, and shortly after, 2 full-strength Voldemorts are roaming the streets trying to take over the Wizarding World. 50% of the Order of the Phoenix are not part of the Order of the Phoenix. So Voldemort basically has twice as much power, and the Order of the Phoenix has half as much to resist him. I think the Wizarding World is screwed. All this because Ron Weasley dies in his first year at Hogwarts. So to the people out there who think Ron is unimportant, who think he's just comic relief or some goofy sidekick, that he really didn't help kill Voldemort, that was all Harry and Hermione, well, I think I've made my point. But what if Ron didn't die in the chess game, and instead Harry went on to confront Voldemort, but gave him the Philosopher's Stone and ended up joining him? If that sounds like an interesting scenario, I've broken down the whole thing in this video, so feel free to go and watch it.